You're right. There is the words are deep, the theological kind of underpinning of everything is deep. There are key verses. There are things that reach into Jesus. There are things that go into like Ezekiel. And so yes, the amount of deep, you're right, the amount of deep verses in chapter 3 is is a lot. I mean, you have to know Exodus, Leviticus, Ezekiel, Jesus for any of this, in my opinion, to make sense. Which even starts with the very first verse, which I did some looking in the Hebrew, when it talks about the word defiled there at the end of verse 1, polluted. Let's see, woe to her who is filthy and
Yeah.
polluted the dove-like city. Kind of like no heart. It's their heart is corrupted. Apparently, that's a pretty that word there is a very descriptive word in terms of, like you said, the deep language of Hebrew. That they don't have any heart. They're completely polluted, which is again his. He is very intense with these folks in his explanation of everything.
Yeah, she has refused correction. Speak to his mercy. Like in these chapters where he's being very judging, it's important to see that it does say he's merciful. It does say he's gracious. It just doesn't use those words. That he's given time, he's shown patience, and that he is merciful. Because if he's giving you time for correction,
Well, and even in verse
she does
5, it
not trust
says,
the Lord. The next verse.
yeah, like morning, morning after morning, morning by morning, he's renewing justice, he's renewing grace. The offer of, like you said, the offer of justice, the offer of patience, it comes after several verses of lining out the issues that they're having, of, like you said, not listening, not obeying, not accepting correction, no trusting of God, not drawing near to God, devouring. And again, and this is interesting because a few weeks ago in one of my sermons, I talked about how in the scriptures, wolves are often used as an example of false teaching and of just like not just lions and the other animals, devour, but like a wolf is attacking. It's a hunter, and he uses wolves in this chapter. And the priests are profaning the sanctuary, and so all of this is going on, and yet, like you said, he's still offering righteousness. He's still offering morning by
Well,
morning.
before he says that about them, he says they don't. She has not sought the advice of her God, and then it says her princes are like this, or that.
Yep.
They're that way because they don't go to the Lord for advice. They just take things in their own hands and take it by force, which is not his way.
His way would be always consult me, always consult
Well,
my
consult
way.
me, but you love, you give, you build up. You don't tear down and take. You don't reach out and just take. That's the way of sin. You take from the
Yeah.
tree and eat. You just take. You're just taking it. You're just grabbing hold with your own strength.
And
That's what lions, wolves, and that's what these animals do.
and 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 it's very interesting in the word pictures he's giving. There he's lining it out, but then, as you said, the picture, the animals he chooses to use, he uses those on purpose because they are illustrating
Yeah.
everything he's done, and then even goes down and says all the things that he's done. I've cut them off. I left their streets deserted. I've said to the city, and again, he asks us again, surely you will fear me and accept correction. Like he's assuming, listen, after all this is going to happen, I want for you to follow me. I want for you to not be profane and arrogant and wanting and being in need. I want to give you. And it says, but they weren't. They were still eager to do the corrupt things. And I don't know that our country, our cultures are all that much different than theirs.
Yeah, and it's like it says here. It just kind of throws me a little bit, but every morning he reveals his justice. It's just his consistent. He consistently shows up and
Hmm.
gives what's needed, like is
Yes.
providing. It's just unfailing. And then they just continue on. It's just shameless. It's just absolutely shameless. But as you get into the next section there, verse 6, I'm reading from the Net Bible, and it emphasizes this, that his judgment will purify. I always like to point that out. The judgment is most importantly about God purifying. It's not about it's not most importantly about vengeance and this, that, and the other, though people get what their works deserve. It's about God keeping things pure. That he takes things as far as he can, but there comes a point where it's just time to purify things. And that happens in little ways, and that happens in big ways. On an individual level, I suppose it happens in little ways where God might bring judgment to prune us. It's not like a full judgment, but it's a pruning judgment that's for purifying. He might set something on fire. I think it's important to point out that his goal is to purify. He won't wipe it totally out if he can just like prune it or something. But he will, when he judges, it's about purifying.
So, like,
well, look at who he's judging here.
yeah,
Otherwise, these people are just going to run right over everything, and everything's going to get corrupted, and that's just be the way of things.
yeah. I mean, he mentions Philistia, Moab, Ammon, Cush, Assyria. Like, he just mentioned them. You're right. They are totally against him. And it's interesting sometimes when we talk about the judgment of God, we don't often see like you said, the purifying part of this.
It's a purifying act.
The part of this.
It's about him. It's not about us. We make it about us. We make judgment about us, even if it goes bad for us. We make it about us and why and all this. But it's this way. It's even a revelation. Like the lake of fire is a purifying fire. It's purifying all creation. Everything impure is thrown into that fire. It's an act of purifying. Even the word that's used has to do with purifying.
Yeah.
It's sacrificial, purifying, and incense and such. It's and not just Jewish, like pagan. Like it's about purifying. Judgment's about purifying things.
And it is important to think about the idea of remnant in Scripture, which happens in verse 13. I mean, the word itself is used, that when we see this, that God, even when he judges, he is judging with hope. He is judging with righteousness. He is judging, for
it's a life-giving act, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
People think of it as just total destruction, but it's not, because things are going backwards, and he's got to get them to go forward in a life-giving way. So it's a life-giving act,
which I think we often miss, because all we see is there's destruction, there's things cut off, there's things that are empty, there's things that are scattered.
Clearly he says he's angry, but I'm just saying he's angry because it's not generating life, it's generating death and destruction. And so he's the only one who can step in and flip that.
Is the life-giving God.
He's a life-giving spirit. He's
right.
Even when he judges.
Well, and purifying is in view, because verse 9, he talks about, then I will purify the lips of the people, that all of them may call on the name of the Lord. He's talking about worship. That verse alone makes me think of Isaiah, where they bring the coal and it purifies Isaiah's lips. I think again, that idea of purifying, of making things holy, putting things back on track, that's his purpose, and we can't miss that. I mean, we can see the destruction, we can see those things, but his idea is, listen, I am making things right, I am purifying, and morning by, like you said earlier in verse 5, morning by morning, there's justice coming, it is right, it's good, and at the same time, we have that other hand where God's angry and he's making things right. He's not upholding sin. The words at the beginning, as severe as we said it was in chapter 1 and chapter 2, chapter 3 ends with remnant, rescue, gather, restore, delight. Zephaniah 3:17 is one of Kelly's favorite verses.
It's really good.
The Hebrew word where it says he will take great delight, that Hebrew word great delight means to twirl with joy, almost like a ballerina or a little girl or a little kid would twirl in joy. And it's in that word delight is this, I'm just like spinning with this is so great. And God is with us. He's mighty to save. And then there's that. He just spins with joy when he grabs us up and holds us. It's a beautiful. I mean,
It is
17th.
beautiful, but it hasn't quite happened yet when this is getting written down. And you have to keep in mind that
Mm,
what he's telling them not to do, they're feeling like doing. They're feeling like panicking. They are feeling like giving into fear. They are really overwhelmed. And that's why this word comes to them, to the remnant, anyways. I mean, it comes to everybody, but it's for those who believe. And they don't feel that way, right? When they get this word, I don't think. I mean, they're scared probably. But he's saying don't give in to that.